You're probably a trader, maybe a beginner who wants to make money trading. Maybe you saw someone make a lot of money on YouTube and you're like, hey, this looks really neat. How do I do this? It looks so simple. And as you go on your journey, you start to use indicators and you try and you lose a bunch of money. You come across the term price action and you're like, what does that mean? And how do I use price action in a strategy so that I can make money with it? Well, we will be looking at that today. My name is Joachim Jerje. This is Clear Trades. Let's look at this. Price action, in my opinion, is not very well defined. Or, I mean, there are some decent definitions out there, but it is not really taught in a good way. So let's look right over to my screen here and let's look at this. Okay, so this is Brent crude oil chart. And here we have the usual stuff, right? So what is really price action? And this is a fairly standard definition, I believe. It basically is the movement of price over time. So you can see you had here a bunch of hours. We were on the hourly time frame. You had a bunch of hours where price was moving pretty much sideways. So you have the factor of time and how much of movement you're getting on price, and that is what price action is. You can compare this period versus this period here, where you had a large move up. That's a very different price action, has a different feel. And this is something I want to mention, this whole thing about feel. Price action has a feel to it. The more you watch the markets, the more you get a feel for how the market is moving. You will notice times where it is slow, you will notice times where it is fast, and that part of that feel is what can inform your price action trading. So let's say it again. Price action is simply the movement of price compared to the time, or in relation to time. That's it. But there's a lot of information that you can gain from price action. So one thing I do need to tell you is that price action is not something that is objective. It is highly subjective. So for example, here you're like, well, it is kind of going up. So it looks like we are in a bull trend, right? This looks like a bull trend. You know, you had a spike and then a channel. So this is what it looks like, right? But it all depends on the time frame. You can see, for example, here, if you go to the 4-hour chart, you're like, well, that starts to look like a bear trend to me. You know, you have you have a high here, you have a lower high here, you have lower lows, lower highs, and it just keeps going down. That looks like a bear trend. And you can zoom out higher and you're like, well, actually, it looks like we're in a trading range. You know, it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down, it's going up. Maybe it's going to go back up here. It just looks like a trading range. So what you define as price action, how you see price action, is highly dependent on the context within which you are looking at. It depends on the time frame you're using. It depends on your subjective experience as well, how you look at the chart. So this is not something that you can just objectively quantify. There's lots of subjectivity involved in price action, and I want you to be aware of that because it can help you on your journey when you're talking to other traders, because what you will notice is that they all have their unique ways of looking at the chart that is helping them. It is not that your way is wrong, it is just that you have different ways of seeing the charts, and that is useful to know. That is highly subjective. Now, the only way you can really get good at price action is by looking at the charts. You need to study the charts. There's two things that you can do to study charts. One thing is a still analysis, which is basically this. You find the time frame that you want to analyze, and you look at it and you see how does this thing move when you're looking at the chart, or how has it moved in the past, and how could you have used it for trades. So for example, you could say, well, here it looks like we are having a resistance zone, right? Every time price comes here, it seems to bounce, right? It comes close to it, it bounces, right? So you can say, look, it was 1, 2, 3. Hey, it's coming up. Maybe I'm going to sell here, right? So you start to look at it. You can see, oh, look, price comes up, and then it kind of consolidates in a trading range here, and then it sells off, and it's happening right at resistance. Same here, but here, maybe you had a tiny trading range on a smaller time frame, but it came up and very quickly reverted. And so you can look at this and learn about how you could trade this, so that you're studying the chart and you're starting to look for characteristics. The best way that I have found to do still chart analysis is just to ask questions to see, okay, how does this asset behave when it gets to a resistance zone? How does it behave when it gets to something like a breakout point, like here? You see, you have a point where it breaks out. It goes below this low here, breaks out of the trading range, and so this is a you can call this a breakout point, right? And you can see as soon as it gets to the breakout point, it's sold off again, it's sold off again. So you can say, well, maybe it's a good idea to look at selling this when it gets to the breakout point, etc., etc. I'm not going to go into all the details, but this is basically what you need to do. The other thing you can do is back test it. You just use the replay function here and find a spot, and you just let it play, and then you analyze it as it is unfolding and look how it is unfolding and see whether your analysis is correct or not. But this is the only way you can get good at. And you can do this without having watched this video at all or watching any of the subsequent videos. You can just simply put in the chart time by just looking and discovering for yourself what is working and how you see the chart, how you read the chart, what you see as opportunities. And then also looking at other traders, and so it's looking at their setups and realizing, you know, some traders, they like to try to get in at a top of the move. Other traders are not as eager. They just basically look for a break. So it comes here, and you can put in a trend line if you want. That's part of price action as well, in my opinion. Some people might disagree with that. You can use the spiking channel if you want, and be like, hey, look, it's breaking here, and I'm going to go short. All right, so I'm just going to go short as soon as this breaks. I'm just going to stay short as long as this downtrend follows. So you're not going to get in at the top of the move, and you're not going to get out at the top of at the bottom of the move. You can basically say, as long as this trend line is intact, or as long as this higher high is not lower high is not breached, I'm going to stay within the trade. Or you can say, hey, look, it started breaking this, I'm going to get out. So there's different ways of doing that. I'm just throwing these ideas out. We will look much more deeply at price action, trend lines, and other things that are useful tools to look at price action. Now, one thing you do need to be aware of is that as you are looking at charts and you're starting to identify patterns, you're essentially training your eyes and your brain to spot patterns on the chart, and you can start spotting patterns when they aren't really there, because your brain works that kind of way. So you do have to be aware that you have a bias. And every trader has a bias. Sometimes that bias is useful and sometimes it is not. But when you're looking at the chart, when you're studying the chart, when you're starting to teach yourself how to look at the chart, you are skewing your perception, and that is inevitable. It happens to everyone. It is not a problem. What the problem is if you're not aware of it, meaning you're so convinced that, you know, you learned one pattern of a double top and you're like, okay, you know, here's a double top, so this thing's just going to go down and you're going to sell, and then you see it just rallied against you. So you need to be open-minded, and you need to take a larger context into question. Like you can't just look at, oh, I'm just going to work with double tops. Every time there's a double top, I'm just going to sell. You know, you would have sold here double top and then maybe got stopped out here, depending on where you put your stop. So you need to know the larger context of within which something is happening, rather than being very focused and pattern specific. You want to be more open-minded, and also be open-minded that maybe this pattern you're seeing isn't there, or it is not in the right context that it is occurring. So just be aware of that you have always a perceptual filter on, and that can skew how you view price action, and you start to, you know, find confirmation for your bias, but it's not there, and you just keep shorting. You know, so you double top, okay, well it went down, but look, and pretty strong sell-off, so it's going to come back. It's not going to go far, so I'm just going to sell again up here. You see it's losing steam, and then it's again pushing against you, and you're okay, I'm going to short again, and so you keep shorting, and eventually you got a bigger move down, but you were biased on your short, and you just kept looking at it as a way of as a confirmation of the pattern. So for example, a pattern that isn't there is like the pattern, it looks like it's slowing down here, it's going to go down, it just pushed a little bit higher, and you don't see the other context of this, which is, there's pretty good momentum up here. There's lots of gaps between the bars, like the high of this and the low of this. It's not closing. This stuff is not closing at all. So there's a good amount of momentum in here. There's so you just need to look at that and be aware of those biases that you can have. Okay. Now, these videos that I'm creating, they are just a starting point. I cannot teach you price action fully. Like all the stuff I have learned on price action, a large amount of it is coming from Al Brooks. You can check out his course. He's a fantastic guy. I have not found his teaching super accessible, but it is a good starting point, and it's very in-depth. I will not be giving you such an in-depth explanation here. I will give you ideas of how you can look at the chart so you're not totally lost. Because look, I mean, you look at this and you're like, I don't know where to even start. Like that's where I was. I don't even know how to start. It just seems to be going up and down, and that's it. I don't really know how to make sense of it. And so with some of the concepts I'll be teaching you, you can start making sense of it, and it will be useful for you to know them and use them for your analysis, so you can start to find your own way. But you have to find your own way. No one can teach you how you have to look at the chart. It is highly subjective. You need to find your own way in how you specifically are working with it. And that can only be done through doing the still analysis, through doing back testing, through doing forward testing by opening a demo account and using some of the patterns that you have found in your own trading. If you want to see an example of someone who really has taken this to heart, you can look at Tom Hugard. Tom Hugard has done and does a huge amount of still analysis of the chart. So he really takes a lot of time every weekend and all time. He is looking at the chart and finding patterns for the DAX and the FTSE, and he's publishing it and publishing his research. And he does it a lot in depth. He's done a lot more than I have done. I am leaning heavily on Al Brooks' concepts and ideas, and they have been tremendously helpful. But I am no Al Brooks. I don't have decades of experience like Al Brooks does. What I am sharing with you is just what I have found helpful in my journey so far. I've been trading for a couple of years by now on different markets. I have been profitable on demo. I'm seem to be profitable on my current live account. It is hard to say whether I have long-term profitability or not. So what I'm sharing with you have to take with a grain of salt. But I do believe that the concepts I'm sharing are useful and worthwhile without me having decades of experience. I'm sure when I look back at this in 5 years' time, I might say, this is garbage. I mean, there's so much better I can do, which would show that I have grown a lot in this time. So hopefully this video will be useful. I hope you have gotten a somewhat of an understanding about what price action is, how it's the movement in time of the price and how it moves, and then how you can then go ahead and start looking at it and see what kind of footprints there are, how there's resistance, and how there's support, and how it acts there, and how you can start just looking at the charts and try to teach yourself how is a good way of looking at it that is going to help to trade. If you're still feeling lost, that is totally okay. That's why I have another video for you coming up where we are going to be looking more deeply at some of the simple concepts I've already mentioned, like bull trend, bear trend, trading ranges, and stuff like that. These things are important. The context is super important for identifying how something is moving. By the way, I totally forgot to mention, I do run a Telegram channel here. You can come over here. I do post my trades in here when I feel like it. I don't always post it. Sometimes I'm busy and I just enter a trade and I have to post it later. But I share my analysis in here, some setups I might be entering, and sometimes when I enter, and you can see me managing it. I have called today GU long and EJ short. We'll see if those are going to play out or not. But yeah, come over here, join it, and then we can rock this whole trading thing together, right? Anyways, hope you had that was useful. Leave a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, take care.